The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Reaper Apparel offers a casual line of superb fit, finish, and comfort. We design for those who refuse to die slowly and choose to live untamed. For those who aren't afraid to face the dark, for the ones that thrive in it, and for those who can appreciate life through a grim lens. That's Reaper Apparel Company. Go to the link in the description of this episode, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. I have hats, I have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, water bottles, notebooks, you name it, I've got it. The description and the link for that will be in the description of this episode. Also, right now, if you use the promo code WELCOME, I will give you 5% off of your first purchase. That's the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Tactical Brotherhood, all American-made apparel, which helps support the Second Amendment. You can also find all this in the description of this episode with the link, Tactical Brotherhood. Part of every proceed does go to helping veterans, as it is a very good cause. All American-made products made right here in Minnesota. Go and check them out. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 to get 15% off your purchase. Now, let's start the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. This is, as always, your host, Mike Bono. I got a great episode for us today, but first and foremost, everyone, please go and peep all of the sponsors that you heard at the beginning of the episode. That is Tactical Brotherhood, Reaper Apparel, my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, we did actually land 2 new sponsors that did not make that pre-recording, unfortunately. I'm a very busy man, everybody, but that is Dubby Energy. Energy for gamers, podcasters, streamers alike. No jittery feeling. I have tried this stuff out. It is phenomenal. It has actually replaced my morning coffee and Monster in the morning. I don't have the crash. Visit that link in the description. Use the promo code Mike Bono and you will get 10% off. And just a couple of days ago, we did land a new sponsor in Shankitgolf, golf apparel company for the avid golfer that likes to go out and have fun on the course, like myself. If you love golf but not that good at it, this is the apparel to help you rock it on and off the course. I've looked at their stuff too as well. Phenomenal. I am waiting on a few things to come myself so I can get out on the links and try it out myself. Again, promo code Mike Bono, and that will get you 15% off of that purchase. That all being said, my guest today comes to us from Purdue University. He has a very lengthy title there, so we'll let him get into that. Dan Bolsen joins the show. Dan, thanks for joining, man.
Hey, thanks, Bono. I appreciate the invitation, and it's nice to continue the string of folks you've had from Purdue and or Eureka College, some sort of a tie-in when you got the Barth boys, and glad to be on here. So I don't know that I can do the justice that they'll do for your show, but I'll attempt to do the best I can.
Hey, I'm sure you'll do just as good as those. Yeah, we've had Kurt, we had Drew, and we had Ryan on. So yeah, this is we're rolling right through Eureka and that area there near Purdue. So you know, just a little bit of background about you. Let everybody know what you do for Purdue.
Yeah, so I'm part of the Purdue for Life Foundation. So we are the 501c3 arm of Purdue University. So most universities have the setup where you get the foundation that supports campus, and that's where the gift dollars flow through, et cetera. There's all kinds of different models that exist across the country, but at Purdue, we are kind of think of it like one big ship that sits right there and supports the whole university, and all the private donation dollars, et cetera, flow through us. So we've got over 300 employees that are a part of our operation, and they sit kind of within units on campus. And what I mean by that's like your, engineering schools, your business school, your pharmacy schools, et cetera. And so we've got people who work in specifically those areas. And then we've got some people who work across the whole university on teams like Drew Barth, who's been on your show before, is part of kind of a central operation where he deals with a little bit of everything across campus. So fun group to be a part of. I serve as an executive director and chief development officer. So I carry two different titles, but I've got one team that oversees the College of Pharmacy, and then I've got a second title as executive director that has a program that Drew's a part of, which is we call Special Operations, and is really there to help us reach out to more alumni and more donors within the university family, and also help those individuals that are part of the program enhance their own career paths and kind of develop themselves while also helping us accomplish tasks. So it's a lot of fun to run both. They're very different. Every day is like wearing one hat than another, but from what I've heard about your career and what you do on the daily, it sounds like you're pretty used to wearing multiple hats too, so you can relate.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know what a day off is. This is, it's supposed to be, day off for me today, and I've been sitting in front of this computer and on Zoom all day. It seems
Exactly.
like, multiple hats. I definitely get that. So, where are you from originally? Take me through a little bit. Where you grew up, what high school. I mean, were you an Eureka grad? That seems to be a pattern here lately. And take me through a little bit of that.
Yeah. So I grew up in Lovington, Illinois, which similar to Philo, Ohio, is going to be one that if you blink, you miss it. But a great small farm town of 1,000 people, long legacy in that area. My family originated very early there, all the way back. If you want to really do the lineage of like the Irish Catholic settlement in that area, my mom was a Foley, and my dad was not Catholic, but was part of a German heritage that settled in the area as well. So kind of interesting how you look at it, and the early farmers in that area, it goes back 6 generations. So been a long time. I've always joked that if you run into somebody around the Decatur, Illinois, Champaign, Illinois area, I might be extendedly related to the part of them. So it's a very large family. We've been blessed to be there a long time. Obviously, I've moved a little bit away now, where Purdue's about 2.5 hours from where I grew up. But I made my way over to Eureka, so typical small town story where you find a good Division III fit that can continue your athletic career, and I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. And then also have some opportunities to work with a program that Ronald Reagan started that is kind of a feather in Eureka's cap. That Ronald Reagan graduated from Eureka, as many are probably aware. But he started a program that's kind of based in leadership when he was in the second term of his U.S. presidency, and he started at Eureka, which was kind of cool. So it's kind of a hidden gem, I think. I'm very fond of the program, but I was able to go through it and get my education supplemented with income and scholarships and things along the way. So after I graduated with my undergraduate degrees, then I transferred over to my master's program in Champaign-Urbana and worked for the University of Illinois athletic department for 2 years, and that as a graduate assistant. So similar to what Drew Barth did out at Bethany College when he was working as a grad assistant. I was working as part of the academic center at Champaign-Urbana. So I joke very lovingly, because I thoroughly enjoyed my job deeply. I was one of the privileges of a lifetime to work with that academic center, and just great student athletes. But my fun joke is I had 500 kids before I ever had kids, because I was the one that hounded them, probably like a parent would, when it comes to getting to your appointments on time and making sure that you've communicated with your academic advisors and all those types of things that, there's a whole army of folks that have a role in that. But I was the grad assistant who did a lot of the scheduling and things. So it was a really fun experience, really a unique 2-year experience there. But I knew the whole time that fundraising and working in kind of administration side of higher ed was my goal. So as I pursued my career path, I was looking for ways to branch into the industry I'm in now, I guess, if you want to word it that way, and was able to find my landing spot out of grad school at Millikan University, which is a Division III school in Illinois. And I worked there prior to coming to Purdue. And the rest of the story's all been here. So I've been at Purdue since the spring semester of 2016. So I am now currently, if you look at the actual calendar days, I'm now into year 8, even though we're wrapping up the spring semester right now, and graduations that actually this weekend here at Purdue. But I just entered year 8 of employment, so it's been a really fun run, and just a great place to build a career, and bought a house, got married, multiple children. All those kind of life moments are all happened since I've been here. So really, it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a heck of a ride for sure. And yeah, I can relate with, like you said, I do live in Philo, Ohio now, but like you were saying, where you're from, a little small, Irish Catholic town. You're probably related to somebody there. I grew up in just a really small town in West Virginia called Follansbee, West Virginia, and nobody knows where that's at, and nobody's nobody's ever really heard of it, and I kind of like to call it Little Italy because everybody's Italian there. Everybody's name ends in a vowel, and like you said, if you meet somebody from Follansbee, there's a good chance they're related to old Bono here in some way, shape, or form. It's always my wife. It drives her crazy when we drive back through there. Everybody's waving. She's like, "Who's that?" I was like, "Oh, that's so. That's this person. Yeah, they're in the family tree somewhere and in there." And she was just like, "How many people are in your family?" It's a lot. I don't know. You know what I mean? So I get that 100%. That small town feel. And you know what? I prefer the small town feel anymore. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, I want to be in a big city. I want to do that. And man, the heck with all that. Give me a small farm town and I'm happy,
Yeah. I think it's tough to explain it to people who have never experienced it, because I think the closest, acclamation we've given people is when they watch Friday Night Lights movies or television shows, or they watch Hoosiers, which, living here, that's, the statewide movie, right, that highlights basketball in Indiana, but or Remember the Titans even, or something like that. But when they can watch those shows where they see an entire town rally around one of the teams, or they see theoretically the town shut down on Friday nights in the fall to go to the football field and whatnot, that's what we grew up with. And that's nice. It's a flyover states mentality that you don't always see in larger coastal cities. It exists in microcultures, with a high school or something. But where my nephew, I've got one niece and one nephew, where my nephew went to high school and my niece will go. It was a huge school. And so totally different culture when I'd be there visiting, and just the hundreds of people that attended their games. But there were thousands of others doing other things at the exact same time, and it didn't make a dent in the population. So just totally different, atmosphere. But I'll never trade that small town work ethic, that small town relationship building, and what you do with just having that support structure that I think every family seeks, for whatever that means for their own kids and their lives. But when you're in a pinch and you need to call on that neighbor, there's something about a small town where people just show up.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Ended up, Bethany College with like Drew and all that, but I went there for 4 years, and that at first wasn't the plan. It was Morgantown, West Virginia. Going to WVU. That was the plan until they pulled their swimming scholarship because I had an unfortunate injury. That happened, but I'm so glad I went to a smaller school than going to WVU. I mean, I love WVU. Would have been a dream scenario getting able to be a student athlete at the college I'm a huge fan of and everything like that. But yeah, I know my buddies went there and they're like, oh yeah, I'm student 457263. You know what I mean? Like they were known by a number, their student ID number, and I was like, oh really? Because at Bethany, I'm actually known as Mike Bono, which isn't my real name, really. And it's my full name for the new listeners out there is Michael Bonaventura, hence why I go by Mike Bono. But they knew me as Bono. They knew me as, my nickname, which was a refreshing change from hearing them being like, oh yeah, I'm known by my student ID number. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't change that for the world, but kind of like Eureka. I mean, you actually got recruited by former guest coach Kurt Barth. What was it like being there? Student athlete, and What was Coach Barth like? I always love to give, former athletes of the coaches that were on, what it was like, and I'm sure it's going to be on par with what the others have said. But what was old Coach Barth's recruiting process like?
Well, I had a unique one. So my story is going to be probably an N of it might not be an N of one now, but it might have been at the time. So I actually committed to Eureka for basketball. So I was the classic case of a kid who was a two-sport small town kid, never going to make it big in either one, put it that way. But it was good enough to play somewhere beyond high school. But when I went to college, I realized that being a kind of a 3-4 man tweener who couldn't dribble well enough to play the wing, but he also wasn't tall enough to have any hope against the 6'6" guy playing power forward. That my only hope was to shoot a 30-footer, which I could do, but that's being a one-shot wonder at the college level isn't as helpful. So pick and pop 4-man that's 6'2.5" doesn't go so hot when you get to the higher level. So had a lot of fun with it though. The size allowed me to. As I kind of went through, my freshman year, really then refocus on football. And I had conversations with Coach Barth before I had gotten to Eureka when I was in kind of the figuring it out process of, am I going to play football? Am I going to play basketball? Am I going to play both? What am I going to do? So I was really fortunate that at Eureka, I was able to experience both sports and then made that decision that, my sophomore, junior, and senior year that I was going to really focus on football and make that transition, and was able to stay. It was a great academic fit for me in terms of the programs I was studying and the academic support that I had. Also the academic scholarship that I was a part of at Eureka through the Reagan program. I mentioned that it made a lot of sense to stay put and to make it work. There was no such thing as a transfer portal or I'm part of the early years of Kurt Barth era. So technically I would have been part of his very first recruiting class, even though I joined him a little bit, maybe non-traditionally in that second semester. But it was a lot of fun. Playing for Coach Barth was, a fantastic experience, a learning experience. I think like most would say, he teaches you the lessons that you want to learn, and whether you realize them in the moment or you realize them later, you're grateful for him. He continues to be your coach and your contact and your friend beyond your years playing. So I still have kept up with him in the years after I've graduated, and they had a tremendous amount of success with Drew and his brother and Lee Anthony, the running back that they had. It was just an unbelievable young man carrying the football. They're just watching the success they had. I flew to a playoff game in Minnesota one year to watch them. I had not gotten back as much as I would have hoped to, but it's been fun to follow them from afar nonetheless. And it's also, I'm jealous of where their technology's come to, because I can watch them online some through streams and things that didn't exist when some of us were going through. But Kurt's done a great job building that program. And I don't know what the statistic is now, but at one point, I mean, Eureka's enrollment was very largely impacted by the fact that Kurt had a robust football team and a high-performing football team, and it was a huge percentage of kids that were, on campus and part of the college. So I'm really excited to see that enrollment continue to be impacted positively by his work, and also the lives he impacts too, because the kids that come and be a part of that program come from all walks of life. And that's what's fun, is when you can take a team of individuals who have been all at every different experience, from the big cities we talked about to the small towns we ranted about, and tying that group together and turning it into a team. And it's not always a perfect science. There's up years and down years, but he did a great job with it. And we fought right to back tooth and nail to get right back close to 500, at 500. Those guys after us took it to another level and brought home some conference championships and really took the culture to a whole different level too, from what I could observe. So exciting to see and fun to watch. Gives you some pride that, when Kurt first stepped in there, that was a heavy lift. Eureka had been in a pretty tough spot. So he took it from really a complete start over to where it went to. So I'm excited that he's now not it doesn't seem like having to play as many freshmen and sophomores as he used to, because when we started, a lot of our guys on the field were freshmen and sophomores, and we were going up against 22 and 23-year-old men I'll tell anybody in the world, an 18 and 19-year-old, they think they're ready. And then you go line up across from a 22-year-old man who's been lifting for 4.5 years at the college level. And they'll especially on the line up front, that's where you see the difference.
Yeah, for sure. It's you brought up a fantastic point that, my son walked through here not too long ago, but I wish he was still here to hear that. You know what I mean? He's a big boy for his age. He just turned 14 and he's 5'11", 250 pounds. He's big for his age and in his group in football and everything like that. And he's on the line. And he's always like, "Oh, come on, Dad," like stepping up to me. I'm like, I'm a 34-year-old grown man. Like, I don't care how big you are, I will still win. Like, I'm trying. There's always going to be somebody bigger, faster, stronger than you, and we're out in the backyard and we're practicing, and getting that extra work in, so he's not that dumb 18-year-old going if he decides to go to college for the for football and everything like that has to go up against the 22-year-old man. That's gonna knock him around a little bit because he's been there before and knows what he's doing. And God, I wish he was here to hear that, because I've been trying to beat that into his head for a couple of years now and it just doesn't seem to stick. But I have fun with him. It's one of those. I played football for 7 years. You haven't, like, you. I know a few tricks and everything like that, and I end up trying to show him. It's fun. But you're right.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, Bono, that I've watched with, and I see it even here, like, just again, I'm a fan at this point. So I left the coaching paths and all the AD paths and things a while ago. But I stay close. I have a lot of friends that are in that realm. I love to see life through their eyes when we can catch up in an off season and hear their stories and whatnot. But I think the part that's so challenging, and I mean, I lived it myself years ago, is when you're trying to convince the high school kid, for one, but two, once they're on your campus, like, recruiting them is a whole shtick of its own now. But once the kid comes to campus, getting them to embrace, it's an overused word, I'll call it the process, embracing the process of growth, that professionally and personally, what I'm referencing is your academics, that most of you are never going to go to the NFL. You're never going to go to the NBA. You're going to go professional in life. That's an old NCAA commercial from like 25 years ago that I still think is so relevant today, even though things have drastically changed in the world. But getting them to focus on academics and get off on a good start so that you're not digging a hole right out of the gate. So you don't have a 2.0 GPA at the end of your first semester. And then secondly, just thinking where you're going to be in 2 or 3 years with your development. Because you now, probably for the first time in your life, have a daily nutritionist. You have a strength and conditioning coach. You have a position coach. You have a head coach. You have all these resources that you never saw before. And if the kids that really embrace that are the ones who all of a sudden you get this, red shirt sophomore, red shirt junior, that's a third, fourth year guy on campus. I'm referencing football, of course. Right. And then all of a sudden comes out as an offensive lineman, and you're like, where on earth did this guy come from? And it's like, oh yeah, he was in the lab for 3 years, growing into who he's become. So the great programs in the country that you see on the highest level of visibility, I'll pick on Ohio State, I'll pick on Alabama, LSU, you name it, Georgia, those schools, they don't play a lot. I mean, they sometimes play that once in a generation freshman that's just unbelievable, but they're largely playing third and fourth year guys who are men.
Yeah, absolutely. I was kind of culture shocked, even going at the D3 level to swim. Bethany College kept their scholarship for me, even though I was rehabbing an injury and everything like that. And it was a complete culture shock from high school, having, just your head coach and your assistant coach, and that's who you dealt with. And now I'm on a college campus and I have my head coach, my assistant coach, my strength coach, my conditioning coach, nutrition coach, and that's at the D3 level. You know what I mean? I can only imagine what it would have been like at WVU, because it was, I even had somebody that called me every night. Did you get your homework done? Did we do this? Did we do that? Or are we prepared for class tomorrow? And then after class, are we prepared for practice? I had that mentorship, as a freshman, and I was rehabbing my entire freshman season. And they wouldn't allow me to swim because of my shoulder, which obviously is a very crucial body part for a swimmer. but they allowed me to be a quote unquote manager of the team so I could get in and rehab there with them and be a part of the process and learn so that my sophomore year I no I was ready. And that was only 1 year. So I can only imagine with these big name schools, Ohio States, the Purdue's, the LSU's, and all of that. Even the redshirt junior that's coming in that's been there 3 or 4 years. That dude's got to be a monster on the field, and then you get that one-off kid that's a freshman that's just an absolute stud, and he thinks I can take him. No, you can't. He's been like, I love that term. He's been in the lab for 4 years. They created a super athlete is what they were trying to do, and it's amazing, but it's a culture shock for these kids to see that, and I went through it myself personally.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's remarkable. So yeah, have no idea how we ranted onto that subject, but I think I got into the Kurt Barth story of recruiting. So my apologies, but I guess that's what we do here, right, Bono?
I say it's the ride home rants, man. We're here to we get off topic so much here. We go on these rants, but hey, you're on the rant show, so that's what we're here for. So you actually work a little bit with it's Drew Barth you work with, correct? Not Ryan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Drew. Yep.
What's Drew like to work with in the office? I mean, he's been on the show a bunch of times as a panelist guest and by himself and with his brother, and actually had time to sit down with him one-on-one. But what's he like to work with? I always like to get that outside perspective.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I would share this, and someone listening hopefully find it interesting. Is I encourage anyone that's ever worked on a team I've had the privilege to oversee or work with to never burn bridges. And what I mean by that, it sounds dramatic, but with just the networking in life, you never know who you meet, conversations you have, where things go. Now, this one's a little unique because it's a Barth family member. I played for his uncle, et cetera. I watched Drew play as a quarterback when I was out of school, but watching him, win championships when he was there. So I knew the name, but had never had a personal relationship there. But when we launched a new program that I was referencing with the special operations team we have here, that we started that group last August, we were doing our first round of hiring for, I don't want to overuse the word cohort, but essentially the first cohort of hires we did. It's more cyclical after that. But the first batch we brought in to launch the program, we were looking over the summer months a year ago, running the search, jobs are open, and the networks led to, I was doing a lot of my own personal, recruiting through networks that I had, et cetera. And was able to find out that Drew was available, was potentially available and was wanting to get into this line of work. That's the main key, was that, maybe not a perfect timing, but in terms of the career path and the progression. So once we connected, he had to really evaluate what's the right step for his career for him. And he made the decision to be a part of it. And he, of course, after, was offered and interviewed and all that fun stuff, but made the decision to take the giant leap and come over here and join the Purdue group. And grateful that he did. So what I've always appreciated about Drew, and I knew this when we hired him, was that he was extremely coachable, which is not shocking to anyone who's known that he was a quarterback. But what's been really fun to learn is, and I love doing in my own coaching, is how do you personalize the training to how somebody learns? And so getting to know the person, it takes a few months to do that. But once you can kind of really get to know how they kind of tick and what's important to them and how to coach them, then you can have fun with it. So, working with Drew is a pleasure. We do a lot of, I guess, bringing some sports into the life. We do some whiteboard breakdowns and things of more, terminologies or visual learning opportunities that, I guess would be keen to like drawing X's and O's on a whiteboard. But, it's kind of fun to be able to coach different team members in different ways. And Drew brings that quarterback element that I'm always using some sort of a football analogy when I'm trying to, teach him something he might not have experienced before in our line of work, trying to make it more fun, the learning more fun, but also more applicable to maybe terminology he's more familiar with.
Got to get him like a little wristband that he's probably used to wearing.
Right. That's when he's on a phone call or he's sitting at a dinner with very loyal constituents and donors. I'll have to start rattling lingo off so he can figure out what to say next. Right. But
yeah, we need to run X2Y banana. That's what we need.
Yeah, there we go. That's fun. No, that's I'll have to put that one in the into next year's think tank for ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean Drew and Ryan and Kurt. I loved getting to talk to them and getting to meet them, and I keep up with all of my guests on here. People are always shocked to hear that. I follow Lee Anthony. I got up at 6 a.m. on a Sunday when I didn't have to stream his game overseas to be able to watch him do what he does, and phenomenal athlete, just absolute a beast. There's a reason he's playing pro ball. I follow Coach Barth and Eureka College. Everybody that has been on the show that's a coach or an admin or something in some way, shape, or form. I'm following them, and I love to keep up with them. And a lot of the coaches, even if it's a tough loss or a big win, I might give them a little, joking text. Oh, that was a tough one, Coach. What happened there in the third quarter? And we have that banter. But I love to see what my guests are doing, and now Purdue is going to be on that list. I'm telling you that right now. Purdue will be on that list of people that and places that I follow. I do watch a good bit of them. Unfortunately, I live in Ohio State country, but so I see a good bit of Purdue stuff. But it's always fun. Like you said, don't burn bridges. I love that message that people can hear that, and I love to keep up with people. I still text guests from the show. I dabbled in swim coaching a little bit over the summer, and I like to feel that I took a Kurt Barth type of approach before I even met Barth, because I still have swimmers. It's been 2 years now since this summer will make the second year that I decided against going. I'm just too busy to go back and coach them, but I still have athletes from that team that text me their times, that text me, hey, you know what, I really appreciate everything you did for me in that little 3-month summer league that we had. You helped me make districts. You helped me do this. You helped me do that. They still text me to this day, and I encourage that. Well, when I left, I was like, look, I don't know if I'll be back next year. I don't know if my schedule will allow me to. I got other things that I got going on, but you have my number. Text me, call me anytime. I mean, preferably text, because I don't know if I can always answer a call, but I can always answer a quick text. And it's great to see the growth in the kids, and I think that's what Kurt brings to it. And even talking to him, like, I wanted to get back and strap the pads on again, just from talking to him, and get back to playing football, from talking to him on a Zoom call. So I can only imagine what he's like in person. But it's great. But I want to get into this a little bit, because I know we're running a little bit low on time here, a little bit. But why Purdue for you? Why Purdue? Why is it a great university for everybody? Just not as the athletic side or the student side. So what do they offer for the students and everything like that?
Yeah, so Purdue for me was totally out of left field, and I say that lovingly, because I never had strong feelings, growing up one way or another. I watched Purdue, of course, being a Big Ten country guy growing up. I'd watched all the Big Ten schools for that matter, but I'd really only had a footprint through Central Illinois, through my education, through my early career. It was all Central Illinois, so I knew that like the back of my hand. The opportunity was really just came about, and it's one of those things where you take a call. You meet people, you start to really like those people, and then all of a sudden you go and you interview, and you're like, well, that's only 2.5 hours, which if we all think about it, where we're willing to drive, that's not really that bad. And so I'm thinking, is Purdue the right fit? And I didn't know that answer when I first took the job. And I tell anybody here that I kind of took a risk and said, let's see. I really liked who I was working with. And I knew that I could learn from those individuals that I would be around on a daily basis, and especially the person I reported to. So I took the kind of again, I'm overusing the term now, but the giant leap that's a phrase we use here a lot, to come over here and work with Purdue and with the individual that I've reported to the same person my entire time, which is very unique. But we've been able to progress through together, which has been an absolute blessing. It's worked out where most of it was his position, and I was just moving up within this team. But then as we back in 2020, there was a progression where my former unit leader, if you will, became an associate vice president, and then I moved up to take over that the pharmacy unit. So we've been a very unique path that it's very N of one in some of the story ways that it unfolds, but we've been able to build on a great foundation. Purdue as a university, there's so much history, right? Founded 1869, a university that largely has always been built by the Wabash River, and it's always been built by what I'll call a blue collar mentality. And what I mean by that is a hardworking, industry related, a lot of trade. This was a huge port stop back in the day when the Wabash River was where all the ships are running up and down it all the time. This really, the Purdue story is fascinating when you go through the history of it and what John Purdue himself did to create this university. And so where it's come to today, I came in under one of my favorite leaders of all time, which is Mitch Daniels, who's the former president of Purdue. He was here for a decade. We've had frozen tuition here for 13 years. And that's something that it's been really proud to be a part of. The tuition freeze it was extended through June of 2025, I believe. That's right. I know it's through 24. I think it's 25. So I don't know. Someday that number will probably tick upward inevitably. But the fact that it's been frozen for so long is remarkable and really a testament to smart budgets, incredible donors, strategic investments, but being able to keep merit raises going and also the boom that it's created with student enrollment. So Purdue was a 32,000 student campus at one point when I was first around it. It's 51,000 kids now when you combine undergrad and graduate. It is a huge campus. So anybody who's been to the greater Lafayette area knows that 51,000 students around here, that's a lot, which is why our housing is pretty much very, very competitive to the point that there's almost not enough at times, but they're building as many dorms and apartments and things as they can right and left. And so it's really been interesting to see the growth of the university. But I love what it has stood for and the leadership that I've been able to be a part of. We have a new president that started in January. So we're still getting the footing of a lot of leadership changes on campus, but the large part of my time here was spent under the Daniels regime for most of my first 7 years, and now I'm into year 8. So we've got a new provost, a new president, et cetera. But it's easy to represent a program that's had a great sports run too. Purdue's been really highly visible the last several years. Your Ohio State fans will remember one of my favorite moments that's probably not theirs, and that's when Rondale Moore was juking people out of their socks and going to the house with it. So Rondale Moore, that's a Tyler Trent night at Purdue College Game Day. Did a feature on Tyler Trent, as many will remember, and it was literally a privilege to where I was hosting some folks for a game, was about 15 feet away from Tyler Trent. So when he was being interviewed on the ESPN broadcast, Tom Rinaldi, et cetera, it was one glass window between us and right where that young man and his family were sitting. And just an unbelievable story, such an emotional one, obviously, with his passing. But just that night will forever go down as one of the greatest sporting events I've ever been a part of, because it was truly Club Ross-Ade Stadium that night, taking Ohio State to the house.
I love it when that happens. I am not an Ohio State fan by any stretch of the mean. I actually can't stand Ohio State. So yeah, that was a good day for me too. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because everybody here and all my, friends and fans here in little old Philo in Zanesville, Ohio, they're all Buckeye fans, and love getting those jabs. And what happened to the Buckeyes? Oh man, that must have stung a little, didn't it? You know what I mean? So anytime.
Well, Bono, you'll love this. Most people don't realize that game. Well, they realize how it ended, but that game ended with Purdue on a pick six to make it 49-20 for the final score. And it was a closer game than that final score really showed. But Purdue scored a lot right there at the end, and that pick six with like a minute left, it obviously sealed the game, and the place was just up for grabs. But the young man who intercepted that, Marcus Bailey's currently playing for the Bengals, so he is in Ohio right now. But he's an Ohio native, a Columbus kid, if I remember correctly. But I know he's from Ohio, and I'm pretty sure it was Columbus. And he was not offered, if I remember correctly, by Ohio State out of high school. And that was, I think, maybe the dream school. So he was I think I got that right. He was a senior when that happened. Yeah. So he got a pick six to seal that game against the Buckeyes, which a lot narrative didn't get as much promotion as it probably could have. But that's a fun memory.
That should have been blasted everywhere. I'm sorry. That's a way to stick it to the man. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you guys don't want me? Watch this. This is what you passed on. I love those stories when it comes to sports and everything like that. But, Dan, I do got to get this segment in here because, like I said, we are running down near the end of the episode. And if for the new listeners out there, it is the Fast Fitty 5 random questions brought to us by the wonderful manager of the podcast, Johnny Fitty Falcone. And Dan, I mean, if you've listened to the show before, you know how random these can get. And he sent these to me like an hour ago. So we're going to read these together and we'll
let's do it.
Let's do it. So if you're ready, they're kind of rapid fire, but you can elaborate if you need to.
We'll fire away.
All right. Question number 1. Would the world be a better or worse place if there was no TV ever again?
Probably better.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that. That's a strong question to start with, Fitty. All right.
Yeah, man, we aren't getting like, do you like paper or plastic? We're getting into like the deep stuff here.
Yeah, that was a deep first question. I gotta tell you that. That's question number 2. Is listening to the radio overrated or underrated?
Boy, I'm going to sound like a dinosaur with these answers, but I'm going to say underrated because I actually thoroughly enjoy personalities on the radio. And I also, I know people hate ads, but that's important. And it's a great way to also know what's going on in the community. That's a small town mindset right there.
I'm pro radio too. I get it, man. Trust me. Question number 3. Are summer wedding receptions better being indoor or outdoors?
Boy, that's probably the toughest one yet. I'm going to say indoor. Okay. I like them indoor better just because it's more climate controlled. You don't have any bug issues potentially depending on what state you're in, and you don't have to worry about Mother Nature.
Yep. Indoors all day for those. Absolutely. Question number 4. Is it appropriate to wear tennis shoes with a suit?
More now than ever before. So it's probably 10 years ago that might have gotten side eye and or a little bit of hate from somebody. But like Coaches versus Cancer, as well as the fact that Cole Haan produces the greatest sneakers on earth. It's a shameless plug for Cole Haan. Those shoes are so comfortable that I think you can get away with wearing like the hybrid sneaker / dress shoe now with a suit.
Okay, I can get on board with that. Question.
I have no stock, no buying on Cole Haan, so if anybody's going to sue me over that comment, I have nothing to do with him other than I spend a lot of money there.
All right, question number 5. What time is an appropriate time everyone should be awake each and every morning? I don't know.
7 a.m.
7 a.m.?
I'm just going to say 7.
Right.
I don't know. I think, it depends on your age. I think we need to scale it by age. Yeah, I think that everyone should be up by 8:30. But I think we can go backwards from that because the older you are, the earlier you're going to wake up. Newsflash for any of our young listeners on here, it only gets worse. You will eventually wake up at 5:30 in the morning.
I'm up at 6 a.m. every day, no matter what. what time of a day it is or what day it is, if it's my day off or not, 6 a.m. And it's to the point now I don't even need to set an alarm. My body just wakes me up at that time.
And if you go to bed at 1 a.m., your body's still going to wake you up at 8 a.m.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Never fails. Well, that was the Fast 55, and I gotta say, probably the toughest questions we've had on the show in a long time. Like that.
Yeah, we got some. I mean, I was expecting some like softballs, right? And like, I got like a 92-mile-an-hour slider.
Yeah, he brought the thunder on that one. That was a little Aroldis Chapman, 102 mile an hour coming at you, and those ones, man, Fitty. That was woo. We're gonna have a talk about that one. That was woo. That was tough.
Little chin music.
Yeah. But all right, Dan, like I said, I give every guest this opportunity at the end of the show. If there's anything that you want to get out there, whether it's for Purdue or just another good message, give you about a minute, and the floor is yours, man.
All right. Well, I will take this to something that I don't directly deal with, but I get to watch it. And so I'm sure some of people listening here probably watched the NCAA tournament, and they saw Fairleigh Dickinson, which you very graciously didn't bring up, but I'm going to mention it because watching it as a fan was tough. It was a great Purdue team, and they lost in a very heartbreaking fashion, and they're now a part of the wrong side of March Madness history. But what I think is fun is I take great pride in supporting the programs that do it in a way that I'm going to say do it the right way, graduate the kids, develop the kids, and put the teams back out there. This Purdue team next year, I'm going to call my shot right now that they're going to be really, really good. They return basically almost everyone. Now, Zach Edey's decision is so crucial, right? So we'll see what happens with that. But if they can get Edey back, if he decides to make that return, that team is just stacked. That's a top 5 preseason team, and it's going to be a lot of fun to follow. But in the NIL era of sports, my last comment here is I don't know. I'm still deciding if I like it or not. I love what it stands for, and it may help a guy like an Edey make a decision to stay in school where maybe previously he leaves, or the same with Hunter Dickinson, who just went to Kansas and stuff like that. You got these high-profile athletes, but more and more, I'm thankful for growing up D3, and a lot of the guests that we've talked about today have been D3 kids. You were as well, and that we played for the love of the game, and we played also and trained hard because we loved it. And I hope that never gets lost in this era of NIL because I understand the business that's a part of all of this, but they're 18 to 22-year-old kids at the end of the day. Now, I know they're adults, but they're also – let's not forget that education from the institutions they attend is so critical. So if you're a parent listening to this, push your kids, but also remind your kids that they're eventually going to go professional in life at some point. Even if they make the NFL Hall of Fame, they're still going to have a life beyond that.
Absolutely. And I got to tell you, I love it when guests just give a good message like that at the end of the shows. I'm all happy to promote anything and everything that you guys got going on, but when it's a good message like that, I think that sticks a lot better and a lot harder than just come to Purdue. You know what I mean? Like that's awesome. But thank you, Dan, for coming on. This was a lot of fun to sit down and get to know a little bit more about you and about Purdue. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. Once again, everybody, please go and check out all of our sponsors if you did like the episode. And as always, if you enjoyed the episode, be a friend, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell them anyways. They might like it just because you didn't. That's going to do it for me, and I will see y'all next week.
The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by W Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. For gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. Go to the link in the description where you can find the best energy drinks out there. Less caffeine than a cup of coffee. Also, no jitters and no crash afterwards. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my favorite sponsor of the show, and that is Shankitgolf. Golf apparel made for the everyday golfer. We might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. We're probably going to shoot a 6 over par, but this is going to give us the gear that's going to help us rock it on and off of the course. Go to the link in the bio, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get yourself 10% off there as well.